Welcome to Rage, Grace, and Everything in Between. This is our unfiltered conversation about neurodivergence and every stage of menopause at the same time, because apparently the universe has jokes.
Hi, I'm Michelle, postmenopausal and ADHD, and currently running on hot tea and pure determination.
And I'm Angel, perimenopausal, ADHD, and honestly just trying to remember what day it is and whether I took the laundry out of the dryer.
We're not here as experts. We're here as two neurodivergent midlife women figuring it out in real time. We know there are women out there who feel alone, who think they're broken or failing, who think they're losing their minds. You're not. You're unmasking, you're changing, you're becoming.
This is our space to talk about things women whisper about.
And the things we don't whisper about because we forgot we were supposed to. This is where we stop shrinking and reclaim our voices, our boundaries, and ourselves. If you're a neurodivergent woman in midlife or someone who loves one, this is your space, your permission slip, your exhale, your reminder that you're not crazy, not dramatic, and you're definitely not alone.
We're neither polished nor perfect. We're not here to pretend we have it all figured out. We are here to be real, to be honest, to be messy, to be funny, to be human. This is your reminder that you're allowed to take up space.
And forget what you're saying halfway through.
Which we will absolutely do.
Regularly. This is a space for women who are done pretending. For the ones who've spent a lifetime shape-shifting only to hit midlife and think, what is happening to me? So grab your beverage of choice, lower your expectations, and settle in. Welcome to the conversation. Let's begin.
Hi, Angel.
Hey, Michelle.
So what are you up to this week?
Actually, I did watch some of that podcast that you recommended with Maya Bialik when she gives the test. Are you neurodivergent? And I got 13 out of 20. It was kind of fun, though, because some of the questions she asked, I wasn't really sure if it was yes or no. Like, if it leaned yes, I put yes. And if it leaned no, I said no. But, I mean, I would really have to think about it, did quick answers. And I know you did the test, but...
Yeah, so I've done this test several times. This time I had 15 yeses out of 20. I had 3 ishes. In the past, I've had like between 11 and 13. The more you know. When I sat and thought about it, my ishes were definitely yeses, so I'm at 18. Which is telling that I haven't, I have autism and ADHD. That really tracked.
So, yeah, and it's like, like you said, the more you know, right? So every time you answer a question, you're like, oh, no, it's actually a yes. And that leads us into our conversation today about our experience in getting diagnosis. So when did you realize that you were different from everyone around you?
Well, for me, it was at a very early age. I can always remember being called a little weirdo. I always got top marks in school. I would usually have finished whatever paper the teacher was handing out before she made it back to her desk to sit down and give us instructions. I always had very low marks in citizenship. It wasn't because I was a bad kid per se, but I was always getting in trouble for being inappropriate. I would have been socially ostracized for my behavior. I never really fit in. I got along with a lot of people, like the high school I graduated from. I only went to for 11th and 12th grade, and we had a smoking campus and we had an open campus. So
80s.
I got along with the geeks, the nerds, the smart people, the theater people, the jocks, the burnouts, the smokers, pretty much everybody, all the groups. I had learned not to hang out in any one group long enough for them to notice just how weird I was. Yeah, that was my survival technique at the time. How about you? When did you realize that you were different from everybody else?
I guess I've always kind of known, like in elementary school, the worst thing you can be is different. And so you try really hard to fit in, to be like everyone else. And it seemed like the harder I tried, the more I got made fun of, the more I got teased. So I said, well, if I'm just going to get teased anyways, I'm just going to lean into who I am. I quickly realized that there was more positive responses when I leaned more into who I was. It made life easier. I didn't have to pretend, and I was able to lean into my creative side. The clothes I wore were outrageous. The just things I did, things that other kids would never do. I'll give an example. In junior high, I went to a sleepover. You know, it's 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade. It's a tough time.
It's a tough time.
Right? Like, it's hard.
You don't want your bra frozen from falling asleep first.
Oh, exactly. Oh, my goodness. Oh, girls are mean. So I had a friend who was freaking out. She didn't have an overnight bag, a duffel bag, something appropriate to bring to a sleepover. I said, just grab a t-shirt bag, like one of those plastic grocery bags, right? And she says, I can't do that. I said, I am. She says, yeah, you're Angel. You can get away with it. I'm like I didn't realize that was a thing, but I genuinely, I don't want to say I didn't care, but I guess I didn't care too much about.
You had discovered that the more authentic you were, the better you were accepted.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one of my privileges.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people with ADHD experience that. They don't, I never had an issue socially. It was things that were easy for me were hard for other people. Things that were difficult for me were easy for other people.
Or at least they seem to be.
They seem to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because our perception is our reality.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, from a young kid, I was a weirdo, but it was embraced.
Well, and you did also go to school during that period where, in the 90s, Department of Education rolled out a self-confidence related curriculum because there were studies that showed that people that had self-confidence and good self-esteem and healthy self-confidence tended to do better in life. So they implemented a lot of self-confidence and self-esteem building.
And I grew up in a very loving home, close friends, like stability up the wazoo. Right. Yes, I had a lot of privilege. Yeah. Money wasn't one, but everything else was there.
Yeah,
so.
That's spectacular. So in retrospect, what events or moments in your past most significantly stand out as obvious signs that you were experiencing that explosive combination of perimenopause and neurodivergence before you had any context or a language to understand that that's what you were experiencing?
In retrospect, now I know my last pharmacy job, my life just was falling apart. Specific things that got difficult was task switching. It was impossible. My working memory, it was so difficult to retain new information. Time blindness got worse. I mean, I was late all the time anyways, but now it's like, it just got away from me. Every relationship was falling apart. My boss was like, what's wrong? My husband was getting angry with me. Friends and family were getting frustrated. The accommodations that I'd set up for myself in the past stopped working. Now I know that it was the combination of perimenopause and neurodivergence. Then I just thought I was failing. So what moments stood out for you?
Well, for me, at the age 40, I graduated summa cum laude in a class of 2000. I got to give the commencement speech. At the time, I was working 60 hours plus at a job and taking 24 credit hours a semester. I was volunteering with several organizations and taking care of my aging grandparents. At 42, I took a yoga teacher training. I got top marks. I read every book. I did every assignment. I aced every test. I even started teaching full-time yoga and had a full schedule. Less than 2 years later, I decided to advance my education and I entered a yoga therapy teacher training program. And at that time, I could not complete a single assignment. I couldn't finish them on time. I couldn't finish them ever. I was struggling with keeping up with my schedule. I was struggling with taking care of myself. I couldn't sit and read any of the books. I couldn't read any of the case studies. I was just spectacularly failing at everything. It was hard. My personal relationships began to fall apart. I was angry all the time. I started having panic attacks all the time. I just was in pain everywhere. I was just filled with inflammation, physical pain. Like I couldn't sleep a whole night anymore. Yeah, I just woke up all the time in pain. I couldn't keep up physically. One of the things that I was doing, I was teaching a yoga class up in St. Clair County, but because it was such a long drive, I was also teaching a physical fitness class, like I don't know if it was an aerobics style class or a kick fit class or what it was.
Fast-paced though.
Fast-paced. And the big significant difference between teaching yoga and teaching an exercise class is that in yoga, you can verbally give instructions and maybe demonstrate pose, but you didn't have to do all of the poses. You didn't have to physically be doing the exercise in a typical exercise class. You have to be, doing all of the movements as you're counting them out for everybody and inspiring everybody to keep going. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't keep bouncing. I couldn't keep jumping. I couldn't keep pumping my fists. I was just so exhausted. The women would just stand there and look at me like, we don't know what to do next. It had become very difficult.
We have our little note cards here with the questions on them. And what emotions did you experience when you first came to realize you were neurodiverse? Relief, grief, rage, validation, all the above? Something else?
Well, for me, it didn't happen all at once. It was a very slow realization. At the time my daughter was researching symptoms, I had just assumed that because I was a pregnant teen and living on Taco Bell and Mountain Dew at the time and an occasional Seagram's wine cooler, that, my lack of nutrition, my lack of support for the growing human in my body was responsible for her physical ailments. And
you thought it was something you did.
I was sure it was something. We didn't really have an understanding of what caused neurodivergence at the time, what the underlying causes were. Then, fast forward to meeting my biological father and seeing all of the parallels there and realizing that this was something that is hereditary. It wasn't Tylenol that I took when I was pregnant. I felt very validated. All of this trouble I had in fitting in, that whole square peg round hole thing had a reason behind it. Overall, I felt a combination of all of those emotions. I felt relief that there was an actual reason that I didn't fit in. With knowledge comes power. I felt grief. I really had to mourn the person that I could have been if I'd had the tools and I'd had the resources and the accommodations to be my best self. And I felt rage over all of these lost opportunities, all of the poor treatment, like the way people treated me, the way I treated myself, that it really, I went through a lot of rage. So Angel, like for you, what emotion or emotions did you feel when you went through this?
Well, when I first came to realize I had ADHD, I didn't believe it. So it was disbelief. My friends would tease me all the time about having ADHD. It was a joke. I would take those online tests. They all came back 100% you have ADHD, but they're online tests. How reliable are they? How much of that can I believe?
Right.
So I just kind of played it off. I didn't allow myself to fully believe I had ADHD until I got diagnosed by a professional. And at that point, it was relief that I had a path forward. I had a name for it, that I had something that I can look up, that I can study, because we have to look up, we have to know.
Yeah, we
have to know. I mourned the person that I could have been had I received an earlier diagnosis. Even in my late teens, school would have been completely different.
So different.
I keep going back to school because I tried so hard, so many times, so many different ways. I just couldn't do it.
People say, if you just put a little more effort into it.
Yeah, just focus. Just try harder. So graduating college, having better relationships with my loved ones and myself. Alcohol and drug use, really. I mean, I partied all the time. The shit that I put my body through. God.
Make better choices.
Yeah, I would have made better choices. I'm probably going to say that 10 times in this episode.
Yeah. Eventually, what then was your final motive to get that diagnosis?
When perimenopause hit, life just became insufferable. I still wanted to grow in life and in work, but I was just going backwards. It was impossible. So when my boss came to me and said, Angel, what's going on? What's wrong? My husband's mad at me and my friends and family are frustrated with me. My boss at the pharmacy, she actually gave me the space and the tools to get diagnosed. They even let me take afternoons off at work to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist to work on finding meds. Yeah, and just wanting to do better and show up better in my relationships. Really, what was your motive?
You know the saying, everybody's a little autistic. It is a spectrum. I had joked about it for a while, that it's not a shitty personality, it's autism. I didn't feel like a joke. I was having real problems. I had lost several jobs in several years, and it had affected a lot of my relationships. And knowing instead of guessing is both a blessing and a curse. Once you have that context, you are responsible for doing something. You no longer have an excuse. You have to actually do the work, like Byron Katie says. You have to get some help, and whether that is going online, doing your own research, or talking to other people that have similar diagnoses, similar problems, similar issues, similar features, and finding out what they're doing, or getting professional help if that is something that's available to you. And I always say being able to afford that professional help, that's a privilege. So whether you get that help online or seek a professional's help, you're responsible for doing that work.
So what surprised you, good or bad, about the process of getting someone to take your concerns seriously?
The gynecological aspects of my health. I had been tilting at windmills since my very first period at 11. I had early indications of endometriosis. I had fibroids, which is a whole nother issue. I had very heavy bleeding and clotting related to both of those. Most of the professionals that I was seeing were telling me that I just needed to learn to live with it. Women just suffer with these things. And my uterus had been basically ruining my life for most of my life. I can't tolerate hormones. I have medication resistant depression and anxiety. I finally got an ablation when I was 32, which really helped significantly with my symptoms. I had my tubes tied at 40. Couldn't get it done before then because God forbid I would get married and the man would want to have children. My philosophy was he better have a mistress because I was done having children. But healthcare professionals just would not let me do that as a single woman. I went through menopause at 50. I had a hysterectomy at 52. When I finally got up the nerve to ask my healthcare professional about an ADHD diagnosis, my doc was just like, yeah, sure, if you think that, you need that. Most people, late in life diagnosed, high intelligent, high masking, people see us and they see that we're thriving and they just don't see what the big deal is. So how about you, Angel?
I will tell you that it has been a lot easier to get an ADHD diagnosis than any of my other female things like PCOS, PMDD, even menopause. Once I decided to seek help for ADHD, I have the medical and financial privilege to receive the diagnosis, right? I received the diagnosis right away. And then I started working with 2 psychologists and a therapist to find medication and figure out ways to navigate my ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD at 40, and 0 people said anything about perimenopause. Yeah. No one mentioned it. It wasn't until a couple of years later when I started getting the physical sensations, and I was still told, no, you're not in perimenopause, even though I was. So like the ADHD was easy, but everything else has been difficult. I've had to advocate for myself, like shout from the rooftops and find people to take me seriously.
Well, what did having a name for your experience allow you to forgive yourself for?
Making poor choices.
Right.
It always comes back to that. It always comes back to schooling for me, my relationships, the way I've dealt with things. I've dealt with a lot of things very poorly, with aggression and anger, or I would just retreat. Now I can forgive myself for some of those things and move forward in a positive way. How about for you?
Having that name for my experience has allowed me to forgive myself for being a difficult and shitty kid, for being a difficult and shitty student, for being a difficult and shitty friend, especially for being a difficult and shitty parent, for not following through so many things, for not living up to my potential. The number of times in my life I experienced people saying, Michelle, if you could just keep your mouth shut, you could accomplish so many things. I have given myself a lot of forgiveness.
So how did the diagnosis change the way you talk to yourself? The tone, the expectations, the compassion?
I'm very much quicker to forgive. I catch myself singing autism whenever I do something that I consider autism, or saying mental pause whenever I have the brain fog. I also find myself checking, double checking, and rechecking a lot of things that I have a pattern of missing or losing or forgetting. How about you? How does this change the way you talk to yourself?
I give myself a lot more grace. That's for sure. I am now more aware when I am at capacity. I don't work to burn out. I stopped far before that. I set boundaries. I think my relationships have been better because of it. I'm not mean to myself when I can't figure it out. I just say, okay, well, that doesn't work for me. Let's try something else. And I ask for more help. So the way I talk to myself, I'm like, it's okay. That's just not the way my brain works.
Right.
It's okay. We'll try something else. Or,
yeah,
I'm just
sure.
not interested. So that's why it's not sticking.
Yeah.
I'm not mean to myself anymore.
That's nice.
So.
That's nice. How did it change the way you felt or feel about others in your life?
Oh my goodness. I have so much more compassion, empathy, patience, especially for like when people are close to you, right? Your grandmother, my mother. Oh, I was so frustrated with my mother all the time. And now I understand her more. I get it. And it's okay. And I do that with everyone. What about you?
It was amazing realizing how many people in my own family and friend circle are in the same or similar boat. I had to do a lot of soul searching because of how I treated people in the past. Whether it's a feature of autism or my personality, I haven't dug down that far, but I've always been very judgmental. Even if verbally what I was saying was very sweet and nice and validating to other people, internally I was, screaming. And sometimes not always internally. Like I can remember saying to my grandmother at one point, "You've been raising kids for over 40 years. How are you still so shitty at being a parent?
It's your one job."
It's the only thing you've ever had to do. How could you be so awful at being a parent? I was very quick to call people out for sucking in life. And now I realize how many of my perceived foes were probably neurodivergent. The number of women in my past that I just thought were batshit crazy. I couldn't understand why they were nutty as the day was long. And looking back now, I realize that based on the stage of life they were in, they were probably experiencing perimenopause or menopause. It's hard enough going through life as a woman in perimenopause, but many of these people were also probably on the spectrum.
And undiagnosed.
And undiagnosed.
Yeah. What's one stereotype or misconception about your diagnosis that you wish people would retire forever? This one's a fun one. I like this one.
Yeah. A misconception that I wish would go away forever is that people assume that those who are, that display intelligence and anything short of genius just have shitty personalities and use autism as an excuse to be shitty to other people. That's not to say that I can't occasionally be a cunt. My friend sent me that meme that I shared with you the other day. It was a picture of a unicorn and it said, "I can't tell if it's my ADHD, my perimenopause, or I'm just being a cunt." We have a lot of the same emotions that neurotypical people experience, but there are nuances that I am just never going to pick up on in the moment. Even if I pick up on them later, one of the features that I have discovered that's common to ADHD is replaying social interactions over and over and over and re-examining them to discover whether you've messed things up. I catch myself saying things in mixed company that I immediately feel the need to explain. I'm always feeling like I need to defend myself because I think I've said something inappropriate. I'm always afraid that I'm going to be written up at work for, or God forbid, being recorded and canceled by, these Gen Zs are always have their phones in their hand and they're always recording. They're secretly recording you and, so they can put it on TikTok. They're, look what this boomer did. Look what this boomer said, I really wish people would just stop doing that.
To have more compassion.
Yeah. How about you? What's a stereotype or misconception that
specifically for ADHD, that it's not real or that it's overdiagnosed, when in reality it's underdiagnosed, especially in women, and that it's only just little boys who can't sit still. There are so many other features that are ADHD, and I didn't realize how much of, I'm going to say, my personality relates back to ADHD. And they say that people who are newly diagnosed, that's the realization that they come to. And this is hereditary. It's not anything you did. It's not anything your parents did. It's not Tylenol. It's not any
You
of these
can't try
things.
harder.
No, I can't try harder. I can't focus more.
Yeah. Now that you've lived with this experience for a while, how do you relate to your diagnosis? Is it a label? Is it a tool? Is it a lens? Is it a companion?
Well, it's a tool that helps me understand my brain. You know, it's something that I can look to when doing research, you know, and it's a lens that I look through. It's a way in which I see myself and others now. I see through a completely different lens than I did before. I mean, that happens as you grow older and you
Right.
knowledge is power,
Right.
right? Now I know what to look for. Things like nail biting. I never knew why I bit my nails, and it drove me crazy. I've been biting my nails since I had teeth. My mom would sit with me every week, and she'd give me a little manicure. She'd sit with me and say, how are you feeling? Is there anything going on? Are you anxious or something bothering you? And I'd say, no, I'm fine. Biting my nails as she's giving me a manicure. Now I know it's stimming.
Well, and you've used some tools to try to help curb that.
Now that I know it's stimming,
Yeah.
I know like the nail polish doesn't work. I know like making it taste yucky isn't going to work, but like wearing gloves or giving myself, because I don't stim when I'm working, when I'm occupied. It's when
Right.
I'm bored. It's when I'm driving, and it's when I'm watching TV. So like I'll put gloves on, and I'll you know, do the fidget spinners and like the rings, and I actually bought just some jewelry. You know, it's
jewelry.
like jewelry you can chew on. That doesn't help me, but it might help others.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
like I just keep looking for things, and eventually something works. What about you?
I don't really like labels. Like back when dog shaming started to be a thing, it always bothered me. We do that to each other, you know, as a society, and it sucks. Nobody wants to walk around with their worst characteristics on a whiteboard hanging around their neck or tattooed on their forehead. But a tool, I don't know how that would work, and it's a feature of Audie's that we're very literal. So I'm not sure how to apply that to my understanding of being a person with ADHD. It is definitely a lens for sure. It magnifies, it highlights, it underscores the context for everything I experience in life now. A companion, not so much, but it has made it easier to relate to other people with similar issues. Your vibe attracts your tribe, and my tribe is both diverse and neurodiverse. I really don't have anything else.
Yeah, that was our last question. That was it.
So we did it. Now for a mindful minute, I want to talk about art therapy and neurographic art. You do not have to be a creative. You do not have to be artistic. You do not have to produce a product that anybody else ever has to see. It can be messy. It can be ugly. It can be whatever. There are a couple of ladies that produce short form videos daily that I watch daily. One is Andrea Nelson, and the other one, I can't remember her name, but her channel I think is called Rebel Unicorn Art. She always wears two little pom-pom ponies. And they have taught me a lot of techniques. And you can Google neurographic art. This is a sample of my neurographic art. You do the lines on the paper, and then you go back through and you soften and round all of the corners, and it has some effect on your nervous system, because our nervous system is calmed with like it's calming to see curved things and not sharp angles. And then you can go back through and color them in and put little designs in them. And the object is not to produce beautiful art. The object is to calm your mind. I keep an art journal pretty much anywhere that I sit and try to relax. And some of the techniques, there's another woman's videos that I've been watching lately. She does like a daily art journal. Like this technique is to take different colors and draw different lengths of lines. with each color until you get to the bottom. And the object is to go slow, because one of the things, is the hyperactivity side of our ADHD. We just want to go fast, break things. But as we're trying to calm ourselves with this art therapy, the object is to slow down. It's just a tool, like the grounding exercise we did in the first episode, like meditation, like all these other things that are just designed to help reduce the cortisol in your system, to help reduce your stress, to help you calm your mind. Art therapy, look it up, find a technique you like, try all the techniques, try one technique, whatever works for you. It's just a mechanism to slow yourself down, calm yourself. That is my mindful minute for the week.
Awesome. And I would recommend that if you're questioning, if you're not sure, or if you're pretty sure, My Bialik is a good resource. We have a lot of good resources that we will reference on this podcast, but the My Bialik podcast episode that we spoke on earlier with the test, I think would be a great place to start.
Yeah. And, she's a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
She doesn't just play one on TV. And she's been doing these videos for over a decade. I know that I have found some very old ones on her channel, and I've been sampling a lot of them. So yeah, that's find the tools that work for you. And if you have questions or comments, or there's something that you would like us to talk about in a further episode, please drop that in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe. I know I have a marketing degree, and I hate being marketed to. There's nothing I like less than feeling like I'm being manipulated into anything. But liking and subscribing is a way to get our material, our content, into more people's algorithms, and hopefully connect with people that relate to our stories.
Yeah, people who can be helped by what we're saying.
And that's why we're doing this, is that we want to share this information, and we want to share our experience with other people. That's it. That's all we have. And we will see you next time. See you later.
Next time.